Israel is once again in the spotlight over its contentious judicial reforms. A key Supreme Court hearing over the judicial overhaul has begun. For the first time in history, the whole 15-judge Supreme Court bench is hearing an appeal against the judicial amendment which was passed in July. The court will decide whether the decision of the government to do away with the reasonableness clause is constitutionally valid. Ahead of the hearing, thousands of protesters took to the streets. The reform package has triggered a nationwide uproar. Protests have been going on for months now.
Because today it's the beginning of a process in which the Supreme Court of Justice in Israel is really under immediate danger from this corrupt government, and we need to stop it right now.
The overhaul led by Netanyahu's government has plunged the country into the worst political crisis Israel has seen in years. The reforms have drawn months of criticism over concerns that they hurt the independence of the court, weaken democracy and encourage corruption. Opposition leaders have accused Netanyahu of trying to use the proposed legal overhaul to quash possible judgments against him. The Israeli Prime Minister is currently on trial for corruption charges, which he denies. The Netanyahu camp has maintained that the overhaul is needed to ensure that the court does not exceed its powers. Critics say that the reasonableness clause of the judicial bill states that the courts cannot hear cases or issue orders against elected officials on the basis of that doctrine. Well, for more on this, we're joined by our correspondent Jodie Cohen, joining us live from outside the Supreme Court in Jerusalem. Jodie, many thanks for your time. Can you just explain to our viewers exactly what's going on today at the Supreme Court and why it's so significant? Well, we're hoping to bring you our correspondent Jodie Cohen, who's joining us live from outside the Supreme Court. Jodie, we're just struggling to get connection with her now, but we will be with her shortly. She's going to explain exactly what's going on today at the Supreme Court and why it's significant. Of course, Benjamin Netanyahu has been trying to explain why this is such a possible big decision for Israel, and the Israeli Prime Minister currently, of course, on trial himself for corruption charges, and the Netanyahu camp maintaining this overhaul really is needed to ensure that the court does not exceed its powers. He's also stated the court cannot hear cases or issue orders, and the critics say that the reasonableness clause is not the right direction for the country. It's plunged Israel into one of the biggest crises in recent history. And it'll be fascinating to see how things pan out over the coming days. Well, opposition leaders, of course, they've accused Netanyahu of trying to use this legal overhaul to actually quash the judgments that are potentially coming against him. So it really is a battle between the two sides of Israel, and it will be fascinating to watch how this Supreme Court situation plays out over the coming days. We're hoping to bring you our correspondent Jodie Cohen as soon as she is able to connect to us from outside the Supreme Court in Jerusalem, and she will be explaining exactly why it's so significant. Of course, we've seen huge protests on the street, thousands of people in a nationwide uproar. And this has been going on in the country now for many months. The judicial amendment, of course, was passed in July, and the court will now be deciding whether the decision of the government to do away with the reasonableness clause is constitutionally valid. Well, we do now have connection with our correspondent, Geordie Cohen. Geordie, I'll get straight to you. Explain exactly why today's so significant and what's going on at the Supreme Court.
Hi, Oliver. So behind me you can probably hear the tooting of the horns. There are protesters here, both for and against the government. But interestingly, they've been saying the same thing. They've been chanting the people are sovereign and that they're here to save democracy. Obviously, what that means is very different for the both sides. So if I explain what's happening, the Supreme Court is holding these petitions today against the reasonableness law. And remember that that's the law that passed in July that means that judges can't judge government decisions based on whether or not they think something is reasonable. They can judge based on other criteria, but reasonableness is not considered objective by the Parliament, i.e. the coalition who have the majority in the Parliament. Now, the government has suggested that the Supreme Court doesn't even have the authority to hold these hearings today. And they say that's because the reasonableness law was passed as an amendment to a basic law, which has quasi-constitutional status. Now, basic laws define how the judiciary works, and the government argued that the Supreme Court ruling on this is overreach. Now, Supreme Court President Esther Hayut, on the other hand, says that if a constitutional amendment challenges the democratic character of the country, then the Supreme Court can intervene even on basic laws. And commentators are suggesting that this all could lead to a constitutional crisis.
So, Jodie, try and step forward a bit. What is likely to happen next? Do you see there being a compromise? How do you see this playing out?
So we know that the hearings today are expected to last hours. A decision won't be imminent. It could even take place perhaps on the 16th of October when Hayut is retiring. She might give her ruling then, or she actually has up to 3 months afterwards when she can write up her decisions. Meanwhile, there have been reports that talks have restarted at the president's residence. Prime Minister Netanyahu has suggested that if a compromise can be reached, he said no one will prevent it from being implemented. And that was seen as being aimed at the ultra-nationalist party head Ben Gvir, who has said that the compromise would be surrender. Meanwhile, Bezalel Smotrich, another of the ultra-Orthodox party leaders, has said that he's not open to ultimatums, but he would be open to concessions. And Yair Lapid, the head of the opposition, said that claims of a compromise are an attempt to disrupt the hearing today. So it remains to be seen not just how things go today, but possibly over the next few months it could drag on.
Geordie Cohen joining us live from outside the Supreme Court in Jerusalem. Many thanks.